Hey guys, welcome back to another foundation road test. So I have been wanting to try this foundation for a long time, but I never could bring myself to bite the bullet because of the mixed reviews. It seemed like some people liked it and some people don't, which I guess is pretty normal. But the people that like it really like it, and the people that don't really don't. So I just never could do it, and I had a really bad experience with my last stick foundation. So I just kept holding off. Well, I finally decided to do it during the Sephora sale, and it is the Hourglass Stick Foundation, and I love this packaging. I just think the triangle shape is so cool and user-friendly, and it's sturdy, it feels good. I am in the shade Buff, and I do have it on now. I'm going to show you the application in a little bit and my first impression because it's the first time I used it. So I'm going to read you a little bit about the claims and all that good stuff before we get started. It retails for $46 for 0.25 ounces. Now there is a lot less in stick foundations than liquid foundations, but apparently they are more concentrated, so you use less with each application. There are 26 shades in this foundation. Now there is also a foundation brush that you can purchase with this foundation. I did not purchase the foundation brush. It's $46, and I just kind of take issue that you need an additional $46 brush to get a really good application. I mean, that is what, $92 for a foundation and a brush, which I think is just kind of absurd. So I am going to be using today my IT Cosmetics Heavenly Luxe Flat Top Buffing Foundation Brush number 6. Because I have great luck with this no matter what type of foundation I use, powder foundation, liquid foundation, compact foundation. I couldn't bring myself to throw down the cash for the $46 additional brush, and I don't think you guys should have to do that either. So we're gonna see if this works, and I may try it out with other methods too along the way, just like I usually do with my foundation road tests. The coverage is medium to full. It's good for all skin types. It says the finish is satin matte, radiant, and natural. And I'm not sure how foundation can be satin and matte. That's a little weird. It says it's a long-wearing foundation stick with the coverage of a concealer, the fluidity of a liquid, and weightlessness of a powder for invisible coverage. It is a foundation and concealer in one. Its concentrated formula is infused with double the amount of pigment than traditional foundations for instant full coverage in one application. The long-wearing waterproof formula provides 12-hour coverage, and the innovative formula adjusts to your body temperature to effortlessly blend into the skin. If you have watched my foundation road test before, you know that I use a variety of methods during my foundation road test over the course of a few days, sometimes a week, to decide how foundations apply better, how they wear better, and all that good stuff. And if you're not familiar with my foundation road test, that's what I do. I don't do just a 1 day or a 2 day. I like to try it with different primers, without primers, with different application methods and all that kind of stuff, so that when I report back at the end, you guys have a good thorough look at each foundation. Today, and I have topped it with the NARS Translucent Light Reflecting Setting Powder. I'm going to go to the application and my initial first impression, and then I'll check in later on today. It does say to put just 2 or 3 dots on the face section by section, which is usually what I do anyway when I apply foundation, so we'll see how this goes. I think I'm going to do all brush today and do a beauty blender on another day, and with different primers. You guys know how I roll, so we'll just see how that goes. Okay, that doesn't seem like enough, but we'll see. So it did cover, but it could cover more. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stripe it on and see where we get. So I think it has really good medium to full buildable coverage. I do not like it under my eyes. My under eye area is just far too dry for this, so I'm going to have to remedy this under eye situation before I proceed any further with my makeup, because it's just far too crinkly and dry under here. But I feel like it covered my redness really, really well. I do need to put a little bit of concealer on my sunspots, but other than that, I think it has really beautiful skin-like coverage, a demi-matte finish, I would say. It's not emphasizing any imperfections, anything like that. I really like it. So I'm going to do the rest of my makeup and I'll come back. I put this over my Polish Choice Resist Super Light Wrinkle Resist. It's SPF moisturizer all in one. And the reason why I use that without putting a moisturizer or a primer or anything else over it is because A, it's mattifying and I usually get enough moisture from it. And I've read and heard that people had gotten kind of shiny with this when they just used a regular primer and not a mattifying primer. So that was all I used, and I've gotten away with using that alone with a lot of other foundations. However, I probably should have used a moisturizer over it because I am getting some dry patches that are showing through. I don't think you're going to be able to see this on camera. I'm going to get a little closer. I don't know if you can see those or not, but I see them up here, and there's one like right there. Despite the dry patches, and even with the dry patches, I really like the finish. I felt like it applied a lot creamier than other stick foundations I have tried before, and after it set, it didn't have a sticky feel to it, because if you are oily combination, sometimes when you use a stick foundation after it's applied, it can feel kind of tacky. This didn't do that. It looked demi-matte, so I assumed it was going to be tacky, but when I touched my face, it felt pretty good to the touch. So I just applied my regular makeup and it feels good. It feels light, really light on the skin. I felt like it evened out my redness, but I still did need concealer to cover my sunspots, which is nothing unusual. So I'm not going to fault at that, and I will check in later. So we're in unfortunate bathroom lighting, but I need to give you guys an update. It has been exactly 12 hours and 10 minutes that I've had this foundation on. So it's still very much on my face. I will say it does look a little powdery in the areas where it was a little dry earlier, but I feel like the dryness has gone away a lot, but it does just look a little powdery. But all of my makeup is still perfectly intact. So I'm very happy about that. I'm gonna try it tomorrow with different moisturizer and a primer, and we'll see how that goes. But I'm pretty happy today as far as the longevity. Oh, I blotted once. So it's pretty good. So today I wore the Hourglass primer along with the Hourglass Vanish Foundation Stick. And I think it looks really good as far as being long wearing and keeping my makeup looking good all day. The thing that I'm noticing is that if I have any dry patches whatsoever, it really does pick up on them. And even if I don't think I have any in the morning, it's picking up on it. But I'm just noticing, I'm hoping you can see this, but along my forehead here, you can see some dryness. And like even around here, I feel like you can just see that it's dry. So that's a great angle. I feel like I like it, but I haven't quite tweaked it enough for me yet. So I'm still trying it out, but I may need to... I'm still trying to make it work for me. So I'll check in again, but I have had this on for about 10 hours now. So, I mean, if you look at my makeup overall, it looks really good from this distance. It's just when you get up close. So before my day gets away from me, I just wanted to come on and show you that this is the first morning that I really got it to work for me pretty seamlessly, except for that first morning. I exfoliated really well last night. I moisturized really well after I exfoliated. And this morning I used my Becca Backlight Priming Filter as my primer. And I'm gonna lean forward, but I don't want to get washed out when I do, so I have to adjust my lighting. Hang on. So I don't think that there's any dry patches showing here and here like there usually is. It looks pretty good this morning. I'm really happy with it. I did have to use MAC Fix Plus this morning to kind of tone down the powdery look from setting it when I was done. It just does that, but I have to set it or it transfers. Okay, we're at the end of this foundation road test. Let's get down to it. This has been an interesting one, I have to say. Really, really interesting. Everybody always talks about this as triangular so you can get into the little contours and creases of your face. Yes, that's great. But you can set it down and not have it roll off your table. That's kind of a big deal if you're somebody who's always dropping things like I am. I am not one that is going to use this for my under eye area. So as far as it being triangular, I think it's okay. I don't think it's necessary. It does help for this area, but it spreads there. So that's not a necessity for me for that, but I still think it's pretty cool. So the consistency of this, it kind of reminds me of butter that's softened enough to start melting. It really glides on the skin so easily. I don't think I've ever messed with another foundation stick that has glided on the skin so easily. It just smooths right on. There is no catching, no sticking, nothing. No matter what primer I wore, if I didn't wear a primer, this just smoothed onto the skin like nobody's business. I could either dot it or stripe it on my face, and I had plenty of time to blend it out every time it didn't set too quickly. You do kind of have to be cognizant of how much you're putting on your face. There was a learning curve there. So that's why this foundation road test was a little bit more intensive than others, because it can look and feel heavy really quickly if you're not careful. If you apply the right amount, it really feels weightless, and it gives a demi-matte, semi-matte type of finish. So this gives medium to full buildable coverage, and it has the potential to look absolutely flawless. If you look at a non-flash photo, any non-flash photo that I took during this time period, it was stunning. It just photographs beautifully. Flash photos were not as on point as non-flash photos, but the non-flash were just beautiful. So it's just a little tricky to work with. I have oily combination skin, like you guys know. I have never in any foundation road test, I don't think, talked about having dry patches. I just typically don't have them, especially now that my skincare has been in check. Now I have upped my retinol strength from 0.5 to 1%. I do have a little bit of dryness going on, but I mean, it's been in check. It's never been affected by any foundation, whether it be powder foundation or liquid foundation or any touch-up powder during the day until this foundation. So I kind of understand why the reviews are all over the board. You've got people with dry skin that say they love it. People say they hate it. You've got people with oily combination skin that say they hate it. You've got some that say they love it. I kind of get it now because I was really struggling with it for a little bit because it just seemed like no matter what I did, it was emphasizing dryness that I wasn't even aware that I had until I used it. And it was bizarre to me because I didn't think that I had dry skin. I started concentrating a little bit more on using a more hydrating moisturizer at night, and instead of using my mattifying oil-free moisturizer during the day that I had been using, I just used a regular moisturizer during the day and hoped it wouldn't make it slide off my T-zone. And I didn't use any mattifying primers. I would use my Hourglass Veil Primer or my Guerlain Meteorites Primer. Ironically, I like the Guerlain Meteorites Primer better with it than the Hourglass Veil Primer. I don't know why, but it just seemed to hold it on better and hydrate a little bit more while still controlling my oil. Because I have oily combination skin, I do still need a primer so that it won't slip off my face, and I do still need to set it with powder. But I did find that it can get dry looking as the day goes on if I have to touch up during the day, which I do because I do get shiny, but I don't have to touch up a lot during the day. Because this gives that demi-matte finish, I just find it holds up really nicely during the day to shine. I would say during a 12-hour day, I had to touch up maybe 3 times, which I don't think is a ton. And I never really looked greasy with it. It stays intact when my skin is taken care of properly. So I have to discount all the days where I tried it and it didn't work, you know, because I was using it and I was using my regular mattifying sunscreen or mattifying primers and all this stuff, and it didn't work. It was making me look so dry and patchy on those days. I couldn't do it. So I also found that I prefer to apply this with my fingers, which I feel is a little bit different from a lot of people, but when I was using a brush, no matter what method I used, I felt like it was just emphasizing dryness. I've just really never had that happen with any foundation. I tried it with a beauty blender and I liked the beauty blender. I liked the way it pressed it into the skin, but it was a little bit hard to move. So I decided the warmth from my fingers might be the best thing, and that's the way I really liked to use it. So I have to be really, really good about keeping my skin exfoliated, my skin hydrated, not using mattifying primers, yet still setting it after I'm done, and it can turn out really, really beautifully. So, you know, I'm looking at it now. I've had it on today for about 10.5 hours, and I'm just now starting to get a little bit of dryness coming through, which is so weird because usually that's a lot of oil, and it's got a nice sheen to it. I hope that's reflecting okay in camera, but you know, I'm getting just a little bit of dryness here that is really only visible really up close. So in a nutshell, when this looks good, it can look perfect, flawless, but when it looks bad, it can look really, really rough. So is this the stick foundation that I had hoped for? Is it perfect? No, it's not. You know, the finish can be stunning, and it's almost worth it if you really have something that you need that look for to keep this on hand. So for that reason, I'm just not going to say that this foundation road test was a total bust. It's just getting that skin prep right and making sure that your skin is just really in check. So it's a little more trouble than I thought it was going to be, but I've yet to find a perfect foundation stick. I haven't. I love having the convenience of a stick. I do wish that it didn't have the excess skin prep baggage with it, but you know, if you're looking for a foundation stick and you have normal skin, if you have zero dry patches, of course I thought I had zero dry patches until I tried this, but you know, if your skin is relatively in check, you may want to check this out and see if you like it or not. Everyone's all over the board with it. All I know is that the finish is beautiful, the coverage is great. Is it worth a little extra hydration, exfoliation? Probably. So I hope you guys enjoyed this foundation road test and found it somewhat helpful. I'll be doing another one shortly. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. If you're not following my social media, I'll put those on the screen so that you can follow me over there too. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.